I've been working as a goldsmith for more than 30 years, 35 years, making and showing work publicly. But I think why I was drawn to the goldsmith was that I was very interested as a young person making structures, making complex structures. And first it was about putting things together, but making small, intricate objects in school and things. So there is that's a sort of a fundamental to me, and I could see that the goldsmith's craft, it lends itself to this really fineness and intricacy on a very sophisticated sort of scale. And so I was very interested in the processes that they used and the systems of making. And so I looked at a lot of archaeological gold pieces, and just to deconstruct the process and the context of manufacture. And so I've been interested in history. But I'm also interested in social cultures, political culture. I like to visit historical places and make pieces and put them back into those historical places. By doing that, it allows you to look at historical context, at the technology of the era, and to make something that is of that era, and then but to put some sort of contemporary social political statement on that, and then place it back into the history. And this becomes not just a historical content or context, but it's also raises questions of authenticity, of whether. I'm very interested in, is it important to have an authentic material culture? So I'm making pieces which I want to bring the viewer into and to understand and to look at it, to learn something of the technology, learn something of the materials and process, and the iconography, and they build a knowledge, have a question, and come to their own conclusion that this is very suspicious, this piece. That it has an accuracy, but it is flawed. And so I'm interested in fakers, and I've done a lot of research on fakers and the mistakes that fakers make. So in a way, I'm investing, or they're imbued into the pieces, some of these traits, but also sometimes they're not. But the subject is flawed because it has plastic. It has red plastic in it. How can an 11th century Etruscan an 11th century Islamic armband have red plastic? So these are the questions. And so it's informing of jewellery history, but it's also raising questions for the viewer. The exhibition is comprised of 3 subjects. The first subject is arm bandits. Now, arm bandits is the story of a postcard, or how design becomes reinterpreted and ultimately ends up in something quite different. So the first subject is arm bandits. It's the influence of a postcard that was purchased at the Metropolitan Museum of a 11th century Islamic armlet. And so down through the centuries, this becomes some other design. It's a design reference until ultimately at the end of this group of work, we have the Ice Vovo. Now the second subject is the official history of the compact disc. I've got the first compact disc as occurring in the 6th century BC. This is an Etruscan from Marsiliana del Begna. This is a gold Etruscan disc with very complex constructions on it. I think this is the first compact disc. Okay, so again, this is the official history, and so you find that there are later Greek pieces in the 4th and the 3rd century of compact discs. Some of them are very tiny and quite small, but they have a complexity of structure on them. And then we go to pieces within medieval period, again with complexity. we come to a Renaissance period, and there are other Flemish pieces of the 17th century of compact discs, complex pieces, and because of that, it's the post sort of Renaissance period and now it's naturalism, and so there's animals and all sorts of structures. That is the iconography. That's the complexity. And so that then goes through archaeological revival, and so there's a looking back at archaeological iconic references. And so the compact disc comes then through the 1960s, 70s, and ultimately we find that the jewellery actually has a compact disc on it. So that's part of the structure of the piece. So that's the second subject, the official history of the compact disc. Now, the third subject in the exhibition it's called collecting, and it's really a idiosyncratic group of artifacts, and they don't have any relationship to each other. Maybe there's signage of authorship there, a sign of a single author, but there's a tea set, there's a chalice, a box chalice, there's a wreath, the black wreath. This is the major influence to this is a 4th century Greek wreath that's in the Antikensammlung in Munich, in the Antiquities Museum there at Königsplatz. So there's a group of these, there's a big tea set, a large tea set. So these are sort of idiosyncratic pieces, but they're stupendous. They're stupendous pieces, I hope. That's my intention, because my main influence in this subject is the excavations that went on in the 19th century of Etruscan tombs and these tomb finds. And especially in the Etruscan, there were these stupendous pieces, this sort of larger-than-life pieces. There's a fibula from Regolini Galassi. There's a fibula that is larger than a torso. A fibula is a pin, and it's larger than a torso. So I've got a very large tea set made of wire. Now, if that's not paradoxical, well, I think that's part of my attention. So there's these larger-than-life pieces. There's a solitaire diamond ring with a pink diamond. This is really quite a spectacular piece. So that third group of collecting, it really, it sort of goes to that domain and asks what are the idiosyncratic and eccentric things that people collect. I've used this Etruscan reference, but even now, you know, people collect their fingernail clippings and put them in a matchbox. You know, people collect all sorts of strange things. That's what I'm interested in. But I'm talking all of these pieces, all of this work is from the vantage point of myself as a goldsmith and interested in jewellery history, referencing jewellery history and representing it in a way where I'm asserting that it has an authenticity and yet it is flawed. Well, I think the exhibiting, showing of the work is really important. It's to publish the work. And it's what becomes more important also are contexts, where you show the work and where you place it. So building up sort of contacts, and I think this has been a major influence for me, a major reference for me with my teaching. And I've continued to teach at RMIT for over 30 years of teaching goldsmithing, contemporary jewellery making. And I have a lot of work with projects with postgraduates, and it's nice to have connections and connect people. And the last few years, last 2 or 3 years, I've been doing projects with my postgraduate people, and we go to places and we have a subject and we go there, and these are very well received. So this is an advanced copy of a book that Carl Fritsch did. We worked on this. This is for the Tarawara Museum of Art exhibition, And this is for the jewellery amigos. Robert Baines, Carl Fritsch, Gerd Rothman. Returning to the jewel is a return from exile. That's how important jewellery is. So, we have to, I haven't seen this, it's just... Oh, it's nice. So, we have to look at this. Oh, there we go. Gerd Rothman, Robert Baines. There's some good stories in here. Some of it text I wrote, and Gerd Rothman writes very interesting text as well. But the amigos, we've had this returning to the jewel as a return from exile. We've had this show a number of times now at the Residence Museum in Munich. There's Munich in March. That's usually what it looks like. It's usually snowbound. I wish I had my glasses. But here's a picture, a photo I once took of Carl Fritsch, and it says that jewellery is like food. The more you eat, the more you'll want.